Hey, what's up? This is the Flyover Libertarian, where two unimportant people from an unimportant place give you the opinion that you didn't ask for. I'm Io Ancap, and I am flying solo this week. Rural Rothbard is busy doing something with his wife. It's something mushy. I don't even know. But instead, I'm going to be here with a guest. It is the hairy-chested libertarian of Twitter at Who Is Nemo Vern. I'm excited to hear, to talk to him about some stuff. How about you? Tell us about yourself.
I am living in Texas. Good times down here in the DFW area, cool city of McKinney. I write music for a living, so I kind of have my foot both in arts world and the business world. Own my own business, houseoflelmusic.com. If anyone needs sheet music for any type of music or something original written, that's what I do 60 plus hours a week. And then all the other time I'm on Twitter talking about politics.
Nice. And see, that's where I came to know about you and started interacting with you on Twitter. And I mean, I have to say, I'm looking at him right now, and this is something that I know that most of your followers are going to be disappointed to find out, but he does not look like Sean from Psych. That's a huge disappointment.
Unfortunately.
Although not as you don't look as different as I might have expected, though. You know, there's a little bit of difference.
The celebrity doppelganger I always get is Chandler Bing from Friends.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and then if it's not that, like a while back when I was really skinny, so my cheeks were sunk in and all that kind of stuff, and I looked like Edward from Twilight, and that's when it was just coming out. There were all I taught at the time, so I had a whole bunch of moms coming in. Oh my goodness, you look just like Edward.
I bet that was fun.
Kind of. I watched the first movie. I was dating a girl who told me she liked the movie, and she said, yeah, whenever I watch the movie, I get very amorous. That was her adjective. And I was like, oh, okay. I sat through that whole entire thing. My brain was bleeding out my ears. And she didn't even hug me goodbye. I got nothing out of that. So I had to protest. I haven't watched the others.
That's fair. I wouldn't either. Actually, although I'll be honest, like I'm hating without cause. I've never actually seen it. I don't know.
You're not missing much. Yeah, you're not missing much.
You know, I was a big fan of Buffy the Vampire Slayer. So
okay.
There was a lot of, and I used to be a lot more into vampires and like vampire lore and stuff like that. And so
yeah,
it was kind of just out of principle. I didn't want to watch this because I'm like,
yeah,
they sparkle in the sunlight. They live in the forest. They don't actually eat people. They're fairies. They're not vampires.
That's exactly what they are. They're fairies. And it's funny because now in pop culture, they're making fairies really evil. So I'm not sure what's happening. The very first vampire book I ever read was Stoker Dracula, like the daddy of it all. Great book. And the other vampires I knew was from what is the cartoon serial? I want to suck your blood. Like there was some cocoa, the choco cocoa puffs or something like that.
Count Chocula.
Like those were the two vampires I knew. And then watching this thing, and he's like, yeah, I'm 400, but still I'm going to a high school and I like to perv on teenage women. There was just too much creepy about it. Reminded me too much of the Democrat Party, so I was out.
Yeah, that's fair. So I guess one of the things that I like to talk about, I didn't prep you for this, so this is just catching you off guard, but I love to hear about like origin stories, libertarian origin stories. Like how did you come to your views?
Yeah. So growing up, I was Republican because my family was Republican. And then as the Republican Party kind of fractured into, all right, you could be a Republican and now there's a conservative, and now we're, making the difference. And then my family was conservative. I grew up in a very religious household. My dad was a pastor, went to a Christian college, like a very strict Christian college. And we kind of had church and politics, there was not much difference between them, and good Christians were Republicans and even conservatives. So, kind of towards the end of Bush the second, I was getting a little disillusioned by Republican Party because, they had said no new taxes at one point, and now I'm out of college earning money, and goodness, there were quite a few new taxes I was paying, and I was just one day I was frustrated because I was working this job. I think my salary for that school, awful little school, was 19.5 a year, $19,500 a year, and still Uncle Sam was taking his pick out of it. And I was like, I wish he would just let me keep all of my money. And a friend of mine heard and said, why are you a libertarian? And the only thing I knew about libertarians was when my dad would complain about them, that they were the sinners who like to smoke pot. And so I started looking into libertarian more, and sure enough, I found out they were just, people who like to smoke pot. That was the only thing I kind of saw of them in pop culture. So years later, I was reading Ayn Rand, Atlas Shrugged. And I was reading it in public, and someone asked me again, are you a libertarian? And I thought, well, people keep asking me this, maybe I should look more into it. And that's when I started finding all of the greats of libertarian. Of course, Ron Paul and his speeches way back when about what liberty actually was. And lo and behold, I connected. I was like, this is exactly it. They don't deserve my money. They don't deserve my work. I bought a house, and I was so surprised that I was going to have to pay on the house for the rest. I was renting it from the government. That's what it was. So with every sort of economic and social advancement in my life, I've become more and more libertarian. I can't say that I'm full on anarchist where I want everything to burn down. I haven't quite gotten there yet, although I hear that's the slippery slope you slide on. I'm like, whenever people talk to me and they say, well, what's your idea of government? I was like, I think there should be a president, but he should volunteer. And I think the House of Representatives, senators, but they should volunteer. Maybe a military, like I could possibly be persuaded for a military, but I think private could probably do it better. And then everything else, no, government needs to stop everything else. So that was kind of my slippery slope into the libertarian world.
It's what's the joke they say, the difference between a libertarian and an anarchist? What is it? 9 months.
Yeah, that sounds about right. I find myself, because back when I was at the very beginning, I was like, well, I'm a conservative libertarian conservatarian. At the very beginning, someone had made that, and someone asked me the question like, well, what are you conserving? I'm like, I don't know. And I looked into it, and so I started looking at other conservatives, and I found out the thing that they were originally going to conserve had slid so far. Conservatives are just Republicans that are holding on for dear life. Conservatism suffers a lot from same thing libertarians suffer from, in a sense, is that they don't have a well-defined brand of what they stand for. So now I'm full-blown card-carrying libertarian.
Yeah, that's of course, Michael Malice's joke, conservatism is progressivism driving the speed limit. Or like 9 times out of 10, I had made this comment to, I forget who I was talking to, but I was like, it almost seems like what conservatives are trying to conserve is progressivism 10 years ago. Like that's what they want to keep, whatever we were there.
Yeah, and of course, I meet a lot of conservatives being in the church world. Whenever I go back and visit my dad and my parents, there's a certain type of people that go to these small church. I love them; they are my people. But whenever they talk politics, and they always want to talk politics, they make sure we know that they are conservative, and they kind of want to conserve what they saw on Leave It to Beaver. which America never really was. Like that was always an ideal. It never was exactly that. But they see this TV and they think, oh my goodness, the lady is feminine, the man is masculine. They have kids that they get in trouble, but there's this parenting going on. And I gotta say, I love it. The white picket fence, the clearly defined roles. Like there is something attractive about that, but it never was. And so there's no way you can conserve something that never happened.
Yeah, and I've got some, I say a lot. I've got a lot of conservative tendencies to my own life. Like I really like, if someone asks me why is it that I'm a libertarian, largely it's because I want the state to leave me alone so I can raise my family. Mm-hmm. So I can, be a father to my children without the state coming in and trying to tell me how to raise my kids. Like I want to be able to set them up for success. And also because, like there's just, public schools are just wrecking the minds of our youth. And so I just want to teach them
I could go off on public schools. I used to be a teacher, and it is an absolute garbage heap in there. Yeah, the thing about conservatives that I love is they've got some great family values, and that's where I think they shine. Is they understand how healthy a two-parent home is. They understand how important it is for a mom and a dad to help raise kids and shape them into good citizens. And I'm all on board with that as long as it's not legislated. And if anyone follows me on Twitter, one of the things I like to bring up quite a bit is, I call it moral libertarianism, where all of these good things are things that we do not out of coercion, but because we choose to. Yeah. And it doesn't seem like that should be such a controversial topic. I'm more concerned, I think, with branding of the Libertarian Party. Like myself, I probably would have been a libertarian a lot earlier, but everybody I saw, we should be able to smoke pot, we should be able to smoke crack, we should be able to have sex work, we should, all this stuff. And I'm like, okay, you're gonna lead with that? Especially if you're talking to some conservatives that are a little bit disillusioned with the Republican Party. It's really tough to pull them over to our side when things like drug use, like sex work, which I'm not, I guess you could say I'm not a real libertarian in that one. I can come back to that. But all of these quote unquote vices are the very thing that would keep them away, because nobody really explains. I'm not going to say nobody, but I don't think that it's the predominant message of saying you have to understand, to be totally free, you have to be able to choose some of this stuff. It has to be legal because it only involves you. It's not violating the non-aggression principle, but it means that we are free not to do it. And I wish that more libertarians would kind of embrace that. Yes, we can, but we don't. It's we act more like teens their first time to college, where they're like, woohoo, look at everything we get to do. And that just carries on into 30s, 40s, and 50s.
Yeah, I think there's something of there's so much in there that you said that I'm just super on board with. I always say, the sex work thing. Yes, technically, it's a victimless crime. They should not be going to prison. Yes, but is that what I'm going to make my thing?
Right. Is that the hill you want to die on? Yeah, so
when currently we're involved in wars and such huger, bigger things, this is our issue. Right. Narrow issue.
And actually, I kind of take a little bit different take on it. One of the things I do get involved in is fighting against sexual slavery. And I think, oh goodness, what's his name? Wrote Hunchback of not Dumas. He's a famous author. Picture of Dorian Gray.
Wilde? No.
Is it Oscar Wilde? So someone listening is gonna just friend me on Twitter and tell me. Anyway, had this great statement where he said, when we got rid of slavery, he said, we didn't get rid of slavery, we just traded it for another one. So I don't know that there are any females in the sex trade that are in there truly because they've chosen it. I think there's been a lot of abuse and conditioning up there. We can watch Pretty Woman and think, oh, it's so beautiful, look, she found this rich guy, but that doesn't happen ever. And so that's one of those where I'm not on board with the state or the government going after it, because I mean, there was just a story last week here in Texas where they found out that the police department that was doing a raid on all of these parlors and brothels were actually utilizing their services, and then when they were done they would arrest the girl. So I think government is going to suck at it, but I think that there needs to be an extremely harsh penalty, and I would even be fine with capital punishment for the people who are enslaving these women, and there some kind of mental health checkup, because again, this is just not something that most women do of their own accord without some serious kind of abuse happening. Men, it's a little bit different. We're really 2 steps up from a toadstool, so that's something we would choose to get in. But for women, it's just, I don't know. What I've worked in it, I have not run across a single person that ever chose to do it. They'll try to pretend like they do, but once you dig through the layers, you find out there was a lot of abuse getting to the point where they quote unquote liked it.
Yeah, that's one of those things that, like, actually I talked to Isaac from our episodes with Isaac at Loki_Christian. He had talked about pornography, and he said, a lot of similar things. Like, there's, like, I mean, if you could pick out like that very narrow scope of pornography, which is like truly victimless. Yeah, like there's just so much, like, if the institute, if it isn't, how do I say this? If it isn't at its core institutionally aggressive,
mm-hmm.
It is in such a gray area that the amount of it that isn't aggressive is just so much. It's so small.
Yeah, and this is where I would love to see from our leaders or people that are in a spotlight a call to a more moral lifestyle. Now, I'm saying this as a person who's messed up plenty, so there, this is not me speaking from a place of elevated spiritual life, but when there is such moral decadence in every bit of society, then that kind of becomes the bar. Like, that's the standard. And when you look back in sort of this golden age of movies, cinema, stage, where they had very strict rules about if you were going to show an affair on TV, you could never make it look attractive. Mm-hmm. And trust me, those people back then were just as wicked as the people that are working today, but they did understand the importance of a moral fabric. And this is where it's, you can have a good conversation with a conservative or a Republican or a libertarian would say, yes, let's elevate that, but let's not legislate it, because the minute you start legislating morality, then it turns into almost a denomination. Well, the Baptists don't let you drink, but the Presbyterians do. So if a Baptist is in power, then we have prohibition again. And if the Presbyterian is in power, city water fountains would probably be kegs. And Lord knows what would happen if the Methodists got in. It would just be mayhem all around.
Yeah. I mean, it's there is a area between, Like, let's just all go out, smoke pot, and sleep with prostitutes, and let's legislate that this is going to be a Christian America. Like there is plenty of room in between there.
Yeah. There is, and one of the things when you're speaking with people, or I'll use the true term, when you're arguing with people on Twitter, one of the arguments that I find a lot from the left, almost entirely from the left and quite a bit from the right, is this false dichotomy. And this is what they always create a system where they're like, oh, well then what would stop people from going into an alleyway and shooting crack into their eyeballs? Because it's not good, and yes, there's going to be some onus on us as parents, as older people, as mentors, whatever, to encourage the younger kids to think ahead, to help teach them, delayed gratification, help them teach, looking forward. But understanding that some people are going to make that choice, just like they make that choice now. What you run into, though, is now whenever they make that choice and mess up, we, the citizen, whether we know them or not, we are forced at point of a gun to pay for all of their mistakes. Yes. And the only thing they suffer is knowing that they're not suffering once they get to the point, where they're incarcerated. And that's where I think it's sad. One, it's not kind to send people like that into a state-run institution. Look at the VA. They couldn't run a kennel, let alone mental health institute. It's just not kind to send people there. Whereas I can show you a lot of public or privately owned charities of people who care deeply about these sorts of cases. They do so much more with so much less. If you let us have our money, we're going to give our dollar to that charity that can take that dollar and stretch it 10 times further than any government can. And it's not this false dichotomy. It's not either the government helps them or nobody does. There is that space in between. And I think that space in between is where we want to be.
Yeah, and I think I've talked about this. I've talked about this quite a bit on our podcast, but I think a lot of times, what those let's just smoke pot and sleep with prostitutes style libertarian, what they picture as a libertarian society is probably not what a libertarian society would actually look like.
Correct.
Because and actually, if I had to guess, a libertarian society, a truly libertarian society, would probably look more like Leave It to Beaver. Like there would be, it wouldn't be like a perfect society. Like when no one's claiming utopia here.
Yeah.
But at the same time, where would people go? Like people are going to go for a social safety net somewhere. So where are they going to go in a world where the government isn't their safety net? It's going to be the family. It's going to be religious institutions. It's going to be private institutions. People that aren't just going to keep giving you money. They're going to want to see like what would stop this person from shooting crack in their eyeballs? How about the fact that dad's going to cut them off if they don't get their life together?
Yeah.
You know? That's probably what's going to happen.
Right. And now, one of the things the government has done so well is taken society and they've sort of forced their image on it, or what they think their image is. And sometimes they will see the trend of where society is going, and they'll try to guess, okay, what does this look like 20 years down the road? All right, let's force that right now. And so where we would have gone gradually in our communities and acceptance of other people, all of a sudden it's forced on us, and everybody don't tell me what to do. This whole quarantine thing came on. Had the government not immediately gone to tyranny and tried to make us all stay indoors, I probably would have chosen of my own volition to stay in more often. But as soon as they said you have to, I looked for a cafe that was open, and I went to that cafe every single day just because don't tell me what to do. So in a libertarian society, when you have people that they're free to live they're free to live as they feel best, you probably would see a lot more of these gender roles that we feel so naturally emerge. And I think that's healthy, especially in a society. Not that you can't have, switched up gender roles. That's not going to throw everything, but just human nature is human nature. And I hate that the government keeps trying to squelch that.
Yeah. I think, gosh, where was it going? I had a thought. The quarantine thing.
Yeah.
I think there is something like what you're saying. Like if there had never been said anything, like I'm watching, I watch We Are Change on YouTube, and he was back then saying like, guys, get a mask, start taking this seriously. This isn't government propaganda. Like there is something to this. And I was like, oh, okay, all right, I guess maybe. And I was starting to think about like what should I do? I'm also a guy who, I guess I'm not overly cautious. Like every flu season, I'm kind of like, well, I'm going to get it or I won't. And so, but with this, I was kind of starting to think like, well, maybe I should do some things to protect my kids. But once the government declared shutdown, my mind immediately goes to, wow, so we're just going to let them do this.
Yeah.
And implications started coming up like, okay, so we really just let the government shut down our churches. Like,
yeah,
no one sees this as scary as it is. Yeah.
Oh, sure. And then, to make it worse, like I write music for a living. A lot of my clientele, churches, that makes up quite a large percentage of my clientele. A lot of my sheet music is sacred in nature. So when they shut down and churches couldn't meet, I was like, oh man, that sucks. But a week or two is not going to be too bad. And then it got closer to Easter. So I lost in Holy Week. Nobody was buying sheet music because no one's meeting for Holy Week. Lost Easter Tide, all the gigs I normally play at that point. And then I was looking around and I'm like, the liquor store is open. Okay. Fast food is open, but my gym is closed. And then they're closing the parks. But like I can still go into Walmart. And all of a sudden, like, why am I less essential than someone else? Like, why is my livelihood less essential than it really is? And then like, hey, we're going to give you $1,200. And I saw people like, thank you, President Trump, for $1,200. Thank you. That's my money. Like, they're just giving me my money back. And okay, thanks. That kind of helped me for almost a month. But why is it that we naturally went for tyranny? And why is it that the rest of us just kind of said, oh, okay. Like if someone, I'm not a huge believer in like the deep, dark underground, someone masterminding all of this. I don't give government that much credit.
Right.
But if someone wanted to see how apathetic of a citizenry we were, this was a great test run for them, because let me tell you, for the most part, we just laid down and took it.
Yep. And I mean, it also like outed the state for what it is too. Like it's just they really just took advantage of this. Like leave no, what is that Alinsky quote, right?
Don't waste a good not panic or not pandemic. I forget what he said.
Crisis. Never let a good crisis go to waste.
Never let a good crisis go to waste. Yeah.
Yeah, it's and they really didn't. They asserted controls that they have never asserted before, and we did just kind of let it happen.
We let it happen. And this was something. So even before all of this started, for the last year, I've been really pondering what to do with taxes. And again, because sexual slavery is something that is near and dear to my heart, not accepting of it, obviously fighting against it. What Planned Parenthood does just sickens me. I do believe life begins at conception. There is no science that can show you anything that would lead anyone to believe that it does not start at conception. But even whatever the case, what they do is straight up murder, and my taxes are going to fund that. And this is like, oh, but they do so many other things. I don't care.
Yeah.
No, either they shut down that part of what they do entirely and just stick with the healthy life giving things.
Yeah.
This is immoral for me to fund it. And so I was like, do I actually have what it takes to give the government a middle finger and say, no, I refuse to pay for the bullet that will shoot me. And I refuse to pay for the suction cup or the suction device that's going to kill a whole bunch of children. Yeah, we'll see what happens this July. I might have a podcast from jail. We'll see.
Well, yeah, it's so true. Like, there's like, and then of course, the galaxy brain will come at you and be like, but the taxes don't actually pay for abortions. Come on,
yeah, I love that.
So they just shifted the money that they would have spent over to the abortions because they have government money to cover that.
That's like a parent sending a college kid money and saying, all right, this money is for your tuition, it's not for beer. And they're like, okay, so the money they were going to spend on tuition, they're going to spend on beer.
Exactly.
What you've done is you've funded it. It's such a dumb argument.
It's very dumb. I agree.
And even
we're very, and I'm very also anti-abortion. I stopped calling myself pro-life after I realized that the whole pro-life movement has just failed. And so I just stopped calling myself pro-life. I call myself anti-abortion because that's what I am.
Yeah.
But I often will say things like, even if you aren't willing to cede to me my position that I'm against abortion, even if you're not willing to cede my argument against abortion, at least you should acknowledge it's weird that I have to pay for it.
Yes. Yeah. No, you're right. It's weird that I have to pay for anybody except for my own or any of my dependents. I've only got a dog, but that I have to pay for anybody's medical procedures. And I was talking with one person on Twitter, and she said, well, there's going to be girls in an alleyway with hangers, dead girls in an alleyway with hangers sticking out of their uterus. And I'm like, well, God, I hope that doesn't happen. That sounds awful. However, who do we think we are that we can stop every bad thing from happening? This is something else that I'm increasingly being amazed by our society. Yeah. We have this God complex that we're singing that stupid John Lennon song, Imagine, and we think that it's a viable roadmap. Like, no, Rainbow Connection is closer to the truth than Imagine is. We can't stop every bad thing from happening. People are evil. We are going to do evil things, but we may as well have a system where I am not responsible to pick up their pieces, or I'm not held at gunpoint to pick up their pieces. In my community, I will help pick up the pieces because I want a strong community. But for other communities that I'm not a part of, I don't want to spend my money there. I want to buy something cool.
Yeah, and I would say that you were a much more reasonable response to this person talking about dead girls in alleyways. I've begun. Maybe I've spent too much time on Twitter. I don't know, but my response to that has become good. Like, you didn't deal with my argument. Like, I believe I believe abortion is murder, so I believe you shouldn't safely kill someone. Like it's like, for me, like I hear that argument, I'm like, what you're saying to me is essentially, oh well, I'd love to kill my wife, but I'm afraid she might fight back. So, there should be a safe way for me to kill my wife. Like, that's what you're telling me, is that it should be safe to murder this baby. Like, I think it should be dangerous to murder someone. I don't know.
When you really break it down to its ultimate, yes, it is murder, and I would love for it to be illegal. I want it to be tried. The only part that I right now can still kind of give on is that there are girls who are in some very scary places. Um, and again, doing some of the work that I do, not everybody chooses to be in that place. They are put in a hard position, and oftentimes every single person in their ear at the time is saying, this is the best way, just kill it, and they won't give it personhood. I tend to have just a little bit. I tend to have empathy and some grace in those situations. Now I will say this, there was someone
Go on.
there was someone on Twitter, this was years ago, I saw, it was this girl posted a picture, and she was letting it all hang out, and her caption was, I'm gonna go get pregnant so I can get really big, and then she's, I don't know what the language rating on your show is, but she was going to let her breasts grow really big, and then she was going to abort it so she wouldn't have to take care of it. And in that case, I was like, you're a monster. You are an absolute monster. Like, one, if you get pregnant, no, you are not allowed, like, you carry that thing to term and then adopt it out. You should not be raising a child. But that is ghoulish. And in that, I have very little grace, very little empathy for that. For the other girls who are in a bad situation, if abortion was illegal, there would be so many more charities for adoption. There are a ton. Now, I have a nephew who's adopted, and that was a choice that his biological mom had to make. Either I birth this child or I abort the child. I love my nephew so much. We have so much fun together. He's a little reader. I send him all my favorite books. I read Kid Lit now just so I can send him all the good stuff. No way this world is a better place without him in it. And this is where I wish, again, as libertarians, we could come out and say, no, this is why life is worth fighting for. This is why the non-aggression principle, this is not a pansy thing to live by. This is serious. You kill someone, you're going to get killed. This is how seriously we take life. And if we take life this seriously, imagine how seriously we would take the value of a human life after they're born, when they come on hard times. The problem is the government is taking so much of our money, and they're sucking so badly at taking people. And we have to fight every day people saying, well, you're a monster. You just don't want them taken care of. No, we want them taken care of. We just think the government is the worst possible way to do it.
Yeah. And I would say, to go back to the first thing, even though I say that, I would say good, but I will acknowledge also, like, what you're saying is, in a world where, like, okay, so in my quote perfect world, where abortion is illegal, then yes, I would prosecute anyone who attempts to murder their child. But in the current world, like, there's some people who will say, like, and then we should try the mothers for murder. Like, we can't do that. Like you said, there's too many voices that were speaking into their ear at a time when they were desperate, saying this is an option. All right. Well, hey, I mean, like, you just found out that you're carrying a child, and it's at that point, like, you're willing to listen to anyone who can help you in a desperate situation. And so I am certainly against trying mothers after the fact. Like, if we can get everything changed. I'm not as sympathetic toward the doctors. But correct. I think also to your point about about adoption, like, there's also just so much government red tape and stuff involved that you almost, like, there's also, like, it seems like the state not only allows abortion but almost incentivizes it by making the adoption and foster system just such a mess.
Right. Well,
like, and if you give up your child for adoption or put them into the foster system, I mean, that's that's a terrible system. Like it
Sure.
almost feels
Oh
like the
yeah.
better option to murder your child. No?
No, and you know that's only half facetious to say that.
Yeah.
If you take it out of sequence, like if we were to go with what the conservatives and the Republicans largely want, and that would be make abortion illegal right now, make it illegal right now, then what you have is, okay, well, there's got to be a place for these unwanted children, because forcing them to stay in a home where they're not wanted is also kind of a cruel thing to do. But then the government starts more adoption agencies, and again, that's just something else they're going to suck at. But take it in the right sequence. Let's get rid of government involvement in everything that has to do with marriage, everything that has to do with the family, with rearing children. Let's let private people set up adoption agencies. There's going to be, I guarantee you, there will be private companies that start up that will go around and they will give certifications to the best adoption agencies. So, you know, we're going to work in, these are kids we're talking about, and we're humans, like we will want them taken care of. And then when the girl shows up and she has the pregnancy that she just doesn't want, now she can look at this adoption agency where good families are getting the kids. All of a sudden, this is not the end of her life, and something good can happen to the child after it's born. And there are very few women, I think, that are ghoulish like that one girl on Twitter. Many of them have this maternal instinct where whether or not they want to keep the child, they don't want to kill it. That seems to be a last resort. Yeah, unless you're these idiotic starlets, they're lying. They're lying through their teeth when they say, "Yeah, I did the abortion so I could be an actress." I mean, yes, but you're the height of selfishness. This is not your typical. This is not your typical female. And I am drawing a distinction between male and female because I think more guys would be selfish in that manner, which is why you need male and female together.
And that's another one of the voices that you can probably consider. Like, you know, one of the voices probably in the ear of the woman who goes and aborts her child might be the father saying, "Hey, come on, this isn't something we can do," you know?
Sure. I know friends that have gotten pregnant from a one night stand. You know, they went out, they made a mistake. And back in the day when I was conservative Republican, well, they made the mistake and they better, you know, they got to live with it. Technically, yes, but we are humans and we're capable of empathy. I'm sad that some of them thought abortion was their only vein for it, whereas adoption is an option. There are adoption agencies around. So again, this is not a binary choice. You don't abortion is not the only thing. But the problem is, making it illegal, just especially now while the government would be involved with it, is just, it's going to be the worst. It's going to be the worst of all possible scenarios.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just let it hang out a little bit. That I'm a little bit torn on this point. Like, I think there's one part of me that wants to agree with you. It's like, yeah, I mean, if we ban abortion, then I mean, how's the state going to make this better? But then there's the other part of me is like, yeah, but I mean, let's just stop the murder and figure out everything else from there. And so I kind of go back and forth on that one. It's a little bit.
Yeah, well,
it's a hard part about living in a non-libertarian world.
Sure. And speaking with someone like you, who's more liberty-minded, and even speaking with other people like the conservatives, the Republicans, we and maybe it's our religious upbringing, we love to scowl at the sinner. Churches are so great at shooting their wounded. That's kind of how we operate. When you're dealing with true grace, though, a girl who is under duress, yes, she may make a stupid choice, but remember, there was a doctor and a nurse there that were not under duress, that were of very clear mind, and they actively killed that fetus. I could even go along with the argument that the female did not actively kill, she passively killed. So then you're looking at a difference between murder, manslaughter. Not that I would necessarily want to go there, I'd have to think through it. But I think all of us could agree right now, healthcare professionals that assist in the murder of an unborn child should be prosecuted for premeditated murder.
Yeah.
I have no issue with that one.
Yeah, in the Nuremberg situation, I'm going to feel a lot less sorry for them.
Exactly. Exactly. It's, again, it's something they chose. I don't know. There are no abortion providers out there. They're like, I'm scared. I don't know what to do. I guess I'll go kill fetuses.
Yeah. Well, we've been talking quite a while.
Okay.
But let's zoom in here.
Zoom in.
I want you to tell me, because you kind of started getting into this, but I want you to tell me what is wrong with the Libertarian Party and the Liberty Movement.
All right. Let's get into it. Zoom in. My biggest complaint with the Libertarian Party is our branding. And we tend to wear the vices out in the open. That is what we are known for. We're the party that believes pot should be legal. We're the party that believes crack should be legal, heroin, sex work, all the bad stuff. And we never seem to, like, that's what we lead with. That's what we're known for. We are not the party of legal weed, pot, whatever. We are the party of freedom. We are the party of liberty. A byproduct of that is you have autonomy over your body. If you choose to do something bad with your body, you get to pay the consequences. If you do something bad with your finances, you pay the consequences. Nobody else is required to help you out there. On the flip side, if you do something good with your body, you get to bear the consequences. If you do something good with your finances, you get to bear the consequences. This is what we lead with. There's a lot of conservatives and Republicans that would come over to our tent, and we probably could win a lot of elections if we said, hey, no, you don't understand. We're the party of liberty. It's not, and then on the left side, the left always has this faux, we're the kind party, we're the humanity party, and many of them are very kind. They do want the best, but they just don't understand that when they have government be the good guy, they're letting the fox into the hen house. So the Libertarian Party has the message that we are the party of liberty, we are not elevating these vices. No, we would encourage people not to do the vices, but they have the freedom to do it if they want. But this gives communities, now all of a sudden the pressure is back on the churches and religious institutions. We've kind of gotten fat, spiritually fat. We sit around like, well, I guess society's, hell in a handbasket. And we've lost a voice. Now, put it in a place where there's no government to legislate morality, and it's up to the church to lift high Christ, to lift high, whatever their religious institution is, to lift high that moral lifestyle. And on the flip side, some centrist Democrats, when they realize, okay, if most of my money wasn't taken from me, I could give more to this local charity where I see them helping the person under the bridge. Like, I can see that. And I can also check up and make sure that the CEO is not keeping 90% of what's coming in, which is basically what happens with government charities. Most of it gets sucked up into the government and very little actually goes to the people that need help. So we have the best message. And then what do we get? We have, bless his heart, Adam Kokesh. You've got pot smokers for Kokesh, sex workers for Kokesh. All of these vices, like, This is their identity. It's not us labeling it. It's them self-labeling. And so this is where I'm striving for what I call a moral libertarianism, and that is realizing that freedom gives us so much more opportunity to do good, to be good, and to encourage those around us to be good. We just get to do it while not pointing a gun at their head.
Yeah, I think like you said with branding, like for one thing, it's like we're taking the "and" of libertarianism or a "so also" and making it the main thing with that.
Yeah.
It's like, as a result of our belief in self-ownership, the non-aggression principle, and private property rights, yes, you should not go to prison for smoking weed. You should not.
Correct.
But like that's not the center point. And in fact, like I'm not even sure that it works. Like I've talked about a few other times, like we put these things forward and we're like, see, this is proof that people are actually libertarians. They just don't know it. And I'm like, no, they're not. People, that doesn't mean anything, because liberty means, like what you're saying, it means responsibility. Like what people want is a mom that doesn't get in their business.
Correct.
They want to be able to live at home. They want their parents to take care of them, and also not give them a curfew.
Right.
And that's what they. And so then when we try and push that as our message, well, it's like they already get that with the Democratic Party, but they also get a welfare check.
Yeah,
so
and then
why would they go with us?
when we're talking in groups, it's fine. We can go full anarchy and have a good time. But one of the things we also, and even our leadership doesn't always understand, is when a Republican or a conservative that probably would swing our way and vote with us read our messaging, we're leading with all of the things like, okay, do I think that police should be a federal or a state organization? No, I don't. But if I'm talking to someone who's a Republican, that's not what I lead with, because immediately you are attacking the very thing. Like they've got the blue line American flag hanging in their window because they have not separated the good cop that's their friend that lives next door. They have not separated that from an entire organization that has kind of created this petri dish where the bad eggs that are in there get to choke a man out without showing any compunction. Like, you have to take them to that place slowly. And because libertarian is less of a party and more of an idea, we're terrible at politics. We just can't help ourselves. And I get it. When you start learning about the principles of liberty, it's exciting and you want to tell everybody. And then the person comes up and they're like, yeah, so I was talking to the police and we just can't help ourselves. Those fascist tyrants there. Like, okay, slowly. I really think there needs to be a series of videos of like how to ease into the libertarian topic of conversation with your loved ones.
Yeah, it's true. And that's, I think you're right. Like there's some point to which there's gotta be a way, like you said, a way to bring people in slowly. There's also a point at which, I mean, for one thing, I'm not sure I want a libertarian president. Like if we get one, wouldn't that just be us selling out? Like, how would we not just sell out and become another one of the big parties? And so I sometimes I'm just like, I'm not sure that I even want that. Like, I want us to do just good enough that we can win elections that actually, I think, would actually help. Like, I'm actually working on, you're talking about cops, I'm actually working on a series of short, I guess you could call them like 5 to 10 lengths. We call them flyover flybys. And I've slowed down, and maybe it's because I'm being a coward because of what's going on right now. But I've been working on an argument for libertarian police to say, I think more libertarians. I think more libertarians should go into law enforcement, and one of my major reasons is because of the concept. And the Constitutional Sheriffs and Peace Officer Association talk a lot about this. The concept of sheriff nullification. The fact that, I mean, yes, there is a problem that the cops will enforce unjust laws, but they can also ignore them. And in fact, they do. There are laws that they don't enforce. Marijuana, before it became legal, was becoming a thing that cops just didn't bother with. Like, put out your weed and leave. You know, like we could actually see actual movement toward liberty using something like that.
Yeah, especially in today's climate, I would love to see more libertarians become police. Just exactly as you said. One of the things that's amazed me, like that, I just saw a video yesterday of some homeless drunk guy at a bus stop. He wakes up and he's cranky and he's cussing at the police, and they, like 12, I think there's 7 of them, shoot him. I mean, it's like da 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 da. I kill him dead, and not a single person in there said, "Hey guys, let's de-escalate this. Let's de-escalate this." You know, if he pulls out a gun, the guy's drunk. Chances are his reflexes are not going to be good enough to aim and shoot. But he didn't have a gun. You know, they were just all there tense. Honestly, I'm always amazed at all of these videos that, like one of those 4 cops when George Floyd was getting choked, how come none of them came over to the guy and was like, hey, there's 4 of us. Let's let him stand up. Yeah. If he's causing issue, we can hold him. There are other things to do. My theory on it, and then I know you're running out of time. My theory is that a lot of people leave the military and they join the police force. Military is a use maximum force necessary, whereas police, law enforcement has always been do all you can, and if nothing else, violence. Yes. Violence was always used as a last resort, and that's why you have local people who get to know the people in their city. Well, now you've got these police officers with army-grade weaponry, tanks, military vehicles, everything, to shut down a hair salon, and not a single one of them thought to say, "Hey guys, let's think about the optics here. Let's think about what we're doing. This is one of us. This is someone who lives in Dallas, Texas. You know, maybe we can settle this amicably. Yeah. We don't have to come in with guns blazing." Absolutely. And yes, I would love to see libertarians in more of these positions, if for no other reason than to look at the government official and say, no.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wouldn't that be great?
Yeah. Yeah. We can dream.
Yeah. I wish we could just keep going on forever, but then the rural Rothbard will yell at me. So yes. I have to bring this to an end. He won't allow it. So is there anything you want to plug before we
Sure. If you're interested in conversations about liberty, look me up on Twitter. I'm the hairy-chested libertarian at Who Is Nemo Verne. If you're into music, getting married, need some original tunes created, look me up at www.houseoflelmusic.com.
Okay. Well, and we'll try and link both of those.
Excellent.
In our episode pages. So yeah, I think that'll be it. We're gonna call this an end. Wrap it up. Thanks for listening. And see you soon.
Awesome. Well, that was fun.
Yeah.
Are you in